So here we are in Lightroom, and I have a bunch of landscape shots that I captured with the GFX 50S2 and the GFX 100S. And we'll take a look at some side-by-side images here. We'll look at the image quality, we'll look at the ISO performance between these two cameras, and also look at the dynamic range. And keep in mind, these are all raw files. Aside from, I do have a few downscaled TIFF files here, but other than those, these are all unprocessed, unedited raw files. So anyways, let's go ahead and jump into the first comparison here. And we have the 50S2 on the left, the 100S on the right. And now keep in mind, when we're looking at things on a global level like this, each image here is taking up about roughly 4.5 megapixels of area on my computer monitor. So you're just not going to see much difference between the images. When you're taking a 50 megapixel image and a 100 megapixel image, and you're looking at them both at 4.5 megapixels, just not going to be much difference there. So I tend to zoom in here to 100%. And this way we have a 1-to-1 pixel ratio between the images and the computer monitor. So anyways, guys, let's go ahead and dig in here to this first comparison. Now, I focused here on this area of the rock when I took these shots. So I want to kind of look at that area first. And right away here you can definitely see a big difference as far as the resolution. You have twice the number of megapixels in the 100S here, and that definitely shows in this image. And I can definitely make out a bit more detail as well because of that resolution difference. You can just see more of the details and the features of the rock here, and the snow, and a little bit of melting snow here, the little ice. And just kind of take a look around at other areas of the image here. Kind of see some detail in here versus here. Now, I will say that both of these files look pretty awesome. It's just that when you comparing these side by side, you're definitely seeing the edge. You're seeing that the edge goes to the GFX 100S for sure. It's a noticeable difference there because of that resolution. Now, I want to take a look at a downscaled GFX 100S file, and we'll compare that to the 50S2. Alright, so now let's take a look here, and you see that now we have the same resolution, and really the files here now are pretty indistinguishable to my eye. Really not much of a difference here. If we look at the detail, I think maybe there's a slight bit more for the 100S downscaled, but it's negligible. It's really hard to see if there's much of a difference. They look pretty similar. So anyways, let's go ahead. We'll move on to the next shot here. And for this one, so we have this waterfall here in this canyon area, and I want to look at the rocks to the right of the waterfall there, because there's a lot of detail there, and I think that's probably a good spot to do some comparisons. And again, you see that resolution difference. Everything looks bigger here on the GFX 100S because of that resolution difference, and because we're using a 1-to-1 pixel ratio. And so you can make out a little bit more detail here on the 100S because of the resolution, but really both of these images are producing a ton of detail. They both look fantastic. But if I was gonna say, does one look better than the other, then yeah, I'd say the 100S looks a bit better. But really, aside from the resolution, no, they look pretty much the same. Alright, let's go ahead. I have a downscaled version of that shot as well. And let's go ahead and, bring this area in. And once again, we're seeing a pretty much identical result there now that we're looking at a downscaled 100S file. Really no difference there. Alright, let's go ahead, we'll move on to these next shots. Now I'm actually going to do a little bit of editing because as you can see there's a very strong blue tint here. So this was taken as it was getting dark, and if you look up here I was using like a 15-second exposure on this shot, a 10-second exposure on this shot. I believe that exposure difference is just because I took the 100S first and then it kept getting darker, you know, before I took this 50S shot. So anyways, I'm gonna actually do just some slight editing. We'll just change the white balance a bit. I just wanna, maybe just only do that actually. So let me go ahead, just copy that, paste it into here. And now let's take a look. So these look a little bit better now. Alright, and these are both at ISO 100 here. Alright, let's sync this up a bit. Find a good spot to look. So maybe kind of in these trees. Just drag this over. Now there's a little bit of a exposure difference still, but ignoring that, it's kind of the same story where, you know, you have that larger resolution where you can make out a bit more detail. But by and large, both of these cameras are producing really nice shots. Let's take a look down here at the shopping area. This building. So if you look at this building here on the left versus on the right, yeah, you could just see more of it because there's 100 megapixels here. Just kind of take a look around. Yeah, I think both of these cameras are producing some really amazing images. Let's poke around here a little bit. Kind of see that difference. Alright, let's go ahead, we'll move into some other shots here. Now these are intentionally underexposed because I wanted to kind of boost the exposure and see what the results would be here. So let me go ahead and do that. And we'll just bring this up. I think it was 3, let's bring it up, do 4 stops here. And I'm also gonna adjust the white balance a little bit. Something like that. Alright. Now let's go ahead and copy this, paste it. Alright, so now these are both boosted by 4 stops. So now let's see what kind of result we get. So it should introduce some noise doing that. Let this finish loading. Okay. Let's find an area. Let's go right over here. So yeah, so doing that adjustment definitely introduced noise in both cameras. And to be honest, I don't see a huge difference in the noise level. Maybe it's a little bit easier to see it on the 100S just because it's at a higher resolution. Even the noise will be at a higher resolution. But let's go ahead. Let me do it. Let me create a downscaled version of this. So we'll go ahead and do that. All right. So I have the downscaled shot right there. So let's go ahead and compare. And let's go ahead and let's kind of look here down at the town a bit. So I'm kind of seeing a little bit less noise in the downscaled 100S file compared to the 50S2 file. Now look side by side. The downscaled one looks just slightly cleaner, a little bit cleaner there as far as the noise. But as far as detail, they look pretty much identical here. Not much of a difference at all. Alright, let's go ahead. We'll move on to the next shot. Again, we have some underexposed images here. So what I want to do is just boost this by 5 stops. And boost this one here by 5 stops as well. And let's do some comparisons. And notice there's a giant raindrop here on the lens. So there was a little bit of intermittent rain during this day. So some of these shots are going to have a little bit of raindrops on it, but we can kind of ignore that. And just take a look at some shots here. So there we go. Now again, these are boosted by 5 stops, so I am seeing a fair bit of noise here in both images. You can kind of see some of that graininess here, especially in the darker areas. But I feel like these cameras just hold up really well as far as boosting the shadows or even high ISOs and things like that, which we'll take a closer look at the ISOs here shortly. But I just feel like these cameras just do such a good job of kind of retaining detail when you do some of these crazy adjustments. So anyways, let's go ahead and, well, I'll go ahead and do one downscaled version of this one as well. Let's go ahead and compare. And now, I'm seeing, again, just like last time, I'm seeing a bit less noise on the downscaled 100S file compared to the 50S2 file. Just, slight. It's not a huge difference here, but I can definitely notice it. Pretty much all over the image. You can see like a lot of noise in here, and then just see a little bit less over here. So that is pretty interesting. All right. Now for these next series of images, we're going to take a look at the ISO performance between these two cameras. And we'll just start at ISO 100 and we'll kind of work up the range. Alright, so for this first shot, we're going to look at ISO 100 versus ISO 100. And really no difference at all. As you would expect, both of these cameras are producing very clean shots at their base ISO. Both of them look fantastic in terms of noise there. Let's move up to ISO 200. And same thing, both of these images are very clean. Really not much noticeable noise at all. Both of them look really good. Alright, I don't want to spend a ton of time on these lower ISOs. It gets more interesting when we get a little higher, but just for completion's sake, I do want to kind of go up the range here real quick. So this one is now ISO 400, and if we take a look here, there's really not much noise here either. Both are very clean here. Let's move up to 800. Alright. And yeah, both are really clean at ISO 800 as well. Just not much noise. I do see it maybe a little bit, just a hair, but very clean at ISO 800. Alright, let's go ahead and move into ISO 1600 here. And now at ISO 1600, I am starting to notice a little bit more noise. So, the noise is becoming more apparent here. But they're still pretty clean in my opinion. I can see a little bit more noise in the 100S file. I'm wondering if that is just because of the resolution. But yeah, there's definitely a little bit of noise coming through here now at ISO 1600. We'll go to ISO, oh actually, for ISO 1600, so I have a downscaled shot now. So we have the 50S2 on the left, and then a downscaled 100S shot here on the right. And these are both at ISO 1600. And what I'm seeing here is actually the noise looks better now on the downscaled 100S shot. Let's go find some other areas where it's easier to see. So you can kind of see the noise in here, but it looks a little bit cleaner on the downscaled 100S shot. So that's pretty interesting there. All right, now let's go ahead and move up the range to ISO 3200. Take a look here. It's definitely getting a bit noisier. Yeah, it looks noisier on the 100S file, or at least it's a little bit, more noticeable there. Now let's look at the downscaled shot again. And let's see here. And so now, you know, the downscaled shot looks cleaner now than the 50S2. So that is pretty cool. All right. Yeah, definitely seeing less noise over here on the downscaled shot. You can see it in these trees. All right. Now I have another ISO 3200 shot here just for comparison purposes. So let's go ahead and take a look here. Let this load. All right. And you know, same thing, both of these shots are fairly noisy, but the GFX 100S looks noisier. But let's see what happens when we downscale it and compare. We'll see if that noise cleans up again. And you know, I'm definitely seeing it a little bit cleaner now on the 100S. Let's look in the sky here. I just see more of that graininess over here compared to over here on the downscaled shot. All right, let's move up to ISO 6400. Let that load. I guess this is one of the downsides of the 100S is those files are huge, so yeah, sometimes that can take a minute to load. But so here at ISO 6400, kind of looking in this rocky area right here versus over here, you know, definitely seeing slightly more noise there. Let's look in the trees. Both of these images are pretty noisy, but I do feel like the noise does hold up very well with these cameras. Let's see what the downscaled version looks like. So see if that noise cleans up again a little bit. Yep, and sure enough, when we downscale that 100S file, the noise looks better. So that is pretty cool. All right, let's look over here. Yep, same thing. Interesting. All right, and then we have another shot at 6400 as well. Just to give another example. Let it load. Loading. Okay, there we go. So you can see quite a bit of graininess, quite a bit of noise. And the GFX 100S looks slightly noisier, but then when we downscale it, what happens? It looks better. Just not as noticeable, the noise. Alright, now next one we'll look at ISO 12,800 here. Now obviously these are both going to be very noisy at this high of an ISO. Let this load. Alright, and yeah, you can just see noise everywhere on both of these shots. Let's look over here. Now let's go ahead and look at the downscaled. And we get the same thing where the 100S downscaled, the noise is not as noticeable. Very interesting. Alright, and we have this other example. Again, 12,800 ISO here. Both of these shots are very noisy. And then if we look at the downscaled version, notice that the noise is not as noticeable now on the 100S. So what do all these results mean? Which camera is better? Well, in terms of image quality, the edge definitely goes to the 100S because of the higher resolution. You know, that 100 megapixels just allows you to see detail that you just can't see as well with the 50 megapixel GFX 50S 2. So, you know, the 100S is a bit better, but to be fair, the 50S 2 does have amazing image quality as well. It's just a step behind the 100S. You know, it'd be kind of like if I rated the 50S 2 as a 9 out of 10, then the 100S would, you know, be a 10 out of 10. You know, both cameras are amazing. So when I underexposed some images and then made 4-stop and 5-stop exposure increases, both cameras handled that adjustment pretty well. I mean, yeah, there was some noise present when making those adjustments, but nevertheless, I thought the results were still very usable. You know, and also that much of an exposure increase, it's not really going to be something very common with real-world shots. But again, the GFX cameras did handle that kind of thing very well. Now, as far as the ISO performance, I thought both cameras were great at handling the noise at higher ISOs. So the 100S at full resolution, you know, it showed slightly more noise than the 50S2, but when downscaling that 100S image to the 50S dimensions, then the 100S actually looks cleaner. So for that reason, I'm going to give the edge to the 100S for ISO performance. But overall, both cameras are fantastic at higher ISOs. So the bottom line is that both of these cameras produce amazing image quality. In my opinion, the 100S is better, but again, to me, it's kind of like the difference between a 9 out of 10 versus a 10 out of 10. And also, keep in mind that in this video, I was only looking at image output. You know, there's definitely other differences between the cameras, such as the autofocus ability, video capabilities, and whatnot. But hopefully this video helped you learn more about these cameras. Please hit that like button if you got some value from this video. Thank you very much for that. And make sure that you are subscribed to the channel, and I will see you on the next video.